going on, guys? Welcome back to the Daily Dish, where we talk everything basketball. I'm your host, Christian Royston, with my co-host, Logan Shanks, on the men's side. I'll have the women's basketball guys introduce themselves.
What's up, guys? Pavel Markovic back with the women's podcast side of the Sports Hoops, and here we got...
Yeah, I'm Brett with the women's basketball portion of the Sports Hoop podcast.
Sweet. We're going to start with recapping all the games. We have quite a bit to talk about, honestly. You know, the men's side got some pretty big wins, especially over their in-state rival, Iowa. So we can kind of start there.
Yeah, I mean, just super electric from the start. I think it was, the thing that stands out to me was, you know, it was Trey King and Rob Jones got back-to-back and ones in the paint. And I looked over at you and I said, this might be going in favor of Iowa State this year. And it ended up being, you know, what was it, close to a 20-point win for them? I forget the final. It's been a little over a week for us now. But
yeah, it was their biggest win that, like, ever in the Cyhawk series.
And that just shows you, I mean, how TJ's kind of changed the culture here at Iowa State, because before last week, 2 years ago when they won at Hilton, that was also their biggest margin of victory over the Hawkeyes. Yeah. So just getting better and better for them. And you really just saw the same stuff that I didn't really think was going to work against Iowa, you know, working inside the paint. I thought, you know, guys like Robert Jones and Trey King, they weren't really going to work, but they established a presence in the paint early, and that ended up being what worked out for them.
Yeah, they kind of just dominated them from the start. I don't think there was a point in the game where I was like, oh, Iowa might pull this out. Mm-hmm. It was the entire game. They were just in their face in the paint. By the time they finally got it figured out, Iowa figured it out inside, like, it was already too late, and they were hitting shots from deep. So I think just, maybe it is TJ, maybe it was the Hilton atmosphere. It was just the whole night, it seemed like it was an impossible place to play for Iowa.
I mean, any win that Iowa State gets this year at home, you're going to have to credit the Hilton crowd, because I had never been to a Cyhawk matchup before, both as a reporter or a fan, and it was loud. I mean, it was crazy. It definitely played, a factor into that win. And, I'm sure, you heard the guys talking about it afterwards, and Rob Jones was telling Keyshawn, it's going to get louder, but me personally, yeah. I doubt it, but
I think he doubted it too.
It's just, there was never, like you said, there was never really a point where I thought Iowa was going to come back. They really, even out of halftime, they kept that same mentality of getting into the paint, and they let Iowa get some shots from out deep, and they've done that with other teams. And, and some points that has hurt them, but really against Iowa, they were fine giving up some, wide open threes, because any wide open three that they gave up, they had about 10 points in the paint, that made up for open shots.
Yeah. Or they were answering back with their own threes, which,
yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what we've seen from this offense, is they can just hang close to the teams when they need to. Obviously, there were a little rough stretch there over the tournament play, but I think we saw the offense finally have pretty much a nearly perfect game. And I think we asked TJ afterwards, like, is this about as perfect as you can ask for? And he's like, well, there was really not much we had to change, so it was pretty perfect.
And you saw really everyone getting into it. I talked about Rob Jones and Trey King, both of them having really good games, probably some of their best games this season. But then, Keyshawn and Taman having their way again. Taman was coming off that triple-double, and then he follows it up with just another solid all-around performance, just being that, like, true point guard that can really just get rebounds, which we've seen in a TJ Altenberger system, is that you're going to have to rely on your guards to get those rebounds. You talk about, Taman last year, guys like Gabe Kalsher, but, he's filled in a great leadership role as a sophomore, which is just crazy to me.
Mm-hmm. There was that stretch with Keyshawn, kind of like right before they were pretty much forced to call a timeout, that he was just on fire. Mm-hmm. Like, every shot he was taking was hitting. There was that inbound that Lipsy intercepted and just passed it out, and he hit a three just without even thinking. I mean, obviously I feel like I've known he can do that all year, and I think they've known he can do that all year. We've kind of seen it, but for him to put it together, like, when it actually mattered, was important, especially going into like conference play.
Yeah, I mean, that guard tandem we've talked about a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if they end up being one of the best backcourt duos in the Big 12. Only time will tell, but it's all about for them, just moving forward, keeping these pieces, just keep putting them together and consistently. And I mean, I really am ready for non-conference play to be done because I want to see what this team's going to be like against Big 12 opponents. But, to get that Cy-Hawk victory, that's probably going to be their best win for, at least the next couple weeks.
Yeah, especially, I know I kind of, compared it to Purdue in a way, beating down on Iowa. Like, I think you see a really good offense go up against a team that usually they have honestly struggled with at points, and they just made quick work of them. And that's kind of the level of play they're going to get from a lot of teams in the Big 12. Not the top teams, obviously, but when they go up against some of the not the Kansases, not the Houstons, they're going to be playing teams like Iowa.
Mm-hmm. And they've really taken advantage of this non-conference schedule. In the last couple of games against Prairie View A&M, they start out not really that great. I mean, they were trailing through the first 5 minutes and were just not really jumping out to a big lead, and then they turned that into a 50-point victory. So that has kind of been getting them votes both in the AP poll and the coaches poll, and it's kind of proven that, they're not just waltzing through these non-conference games. They're taking advantage of their opponents.
Yeah, and we'll get more into the non-cons. I think, obviously we talked about the Cy-Hawk game on the men's side. The women, it was a very similar atmosphere, if not even louder. But, you go up against a player like Caitlin Clark, it's going to be a tough environment to get a win in there. So we'll send it over to the women's guys and see what they have to say about the Cy-Hawk game.
So, yeah, for the Cy-Hawk game for the women's side, honestly, I was very shocked to see what kind of performance they gave us. I mean, they only lost by less than 10 points to the number 4 team in the country, which is insane to say.
Yeah, I mean, electric atmosphere too. When you walk in, stadium's full. It's electric to see, especially, not just for this game, but for women's basketball in general. It's awesome to see. And yeah, like you said, they played Iowa really well. Caitlin Clark, I know she had 35 points, led Iowa and everyone in scoring, but she didn't really shoot the ball that well, and that was good to see that the Cyclones were defending her well. She shoots 12 of 31 from the field. So there's definitely potential with this Iowa State team, and they really showed it in a really solid way against Iowa.
And I think what was key to that Iowa game was obviously the presence in the paint. Bill Fennelly talked a lot about using Audie Crooks in the paint. I know I was really relying on Caitlin Clark, so, using that paint presence. Audie finished with about 15 in the game with being in the paint, disturbing their paint presence, which is really helpful, and I'm keeping it close in that.
Yeah, not just Audie Crooks. She had a double-double, but so did Addie Brown, and it was really those two that kind of helped push the Cyclones to give them a shot on offense, but on defense, it was definitely Ariana Jackson, and I know that you've been big on her defense this year.
Oh, yeah. Ariana Jackson's been a huge defensive presence on this team. Him and Naidu also had some time covering Caitlin Clark in this game. But, yeah, she doesn't put up the highest offensive numbers, but she definitely is one of the best defensive players on this team, I would say.
Oh, yeah, it was definitely just an all-around good effort by the Cyclones. I felt like it was, at the time, their best performance as a team, even though they lost.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know there were points in the game where I was sitting there watching, and I was like, they might actually win this. It was like late in the game, and they're going back and forth, changing leads. And, obviously you look at the final score and you're like, okay, it wasn't that close. It was closer than people thought. But then if you watch the whole game, you're like, Iowa State really had a chance to win that game.
Yeah, they did everything right to put themselves in the position for the upset. I think it was just towards the end when, like we mentioned, Caitlin Clark, she's going to hit some shots towards the end that really puts Iowa over the hump, and that's what they ended up doing. But you saw a lot of progress with a lot of players from this team, especially the younger guys or the younger girls in Addie Brown and Audie Crooks. Audie Crooks really just, same with the men's team, established the presence in the paint. And for a long time, Iowa didn't really have an answer for them, which is what I saw and kind of helped them get into leads when they could. But overall, just a really great game personally to watch. And I mean, that kind of proved that they kind of put themselves on the map with that. They didn't do so well when they went into their tournament games, much like the men's team. And they proved that they are, they're not going to take a huge step back just because they have a ton of freshmen playing.
And even with Caitlin Clark, like shooting not too well throughout the entire game, she's going to put up shots and they're going to hit. And I think Iowa State still did a pretty solid job, honestly, defending her. I mean, you guys bring up AJ, but I think there was also a lot of other people out there tasked with the job of guarding Caitlin Clark, and they honestly did pretty good despite, her final point total.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I know I mentioned earlier, Naidu also had some time with Caitlin Clark when AJ might have been on her. But, yeah, I think in general, I mean, they did a really well job containing her, even though the stat sheet says she got 35 points. But then the other girl in Iowa, it's Kate Martin. She got double figures, which is obviously when they try and double Caitlin, they pass it out to her, and that's what found her success.
Yeah, I think Kate Martin definitely was probably the deciding factor in the game, to be honest, because Caitlin Clark is going to score all those points. No one else in Iowa felt like really contributed on offense, so having Kate Martin as that second contributor to get to double figures really, I think, was what put Iowa over the edge. But, I mean, it was a close game all around. Iowa State trails by 3 after the first quarter. They're tied into halftime, down by 3 again after the third, and it's right there. But it was just those final 4.5 minutes, just could not make a single field goal, and that's really how they fell.
Yeah, and that'll happen. I think that's kind of similar on the men's side where TJ has been talking about putting together a full 40 minutes. Mm-hmm. And, good teams can, pull out wins against not great teams if they don't put together a full 40. But if you're going to play a great team, you have to put together a full 40 minutes.
Yeah, and, they will have these next couple conference games, both non-conference games, to put, hopefully a couple 40-minute games together offensively and defensively. I think for both teams, really, although the men's team won and the women's team lost against Iowa, they both really proved what they are, the type of teams that they're going to be this season against major competition. I know since losing to Iowa State, I was kind of still falling off the bus a little bit. And, Iowa, for the women's team, has just gotten a little bit better. But they've both established that, they're teams that can compete. The men's team had some solid wins earlier in the year, against VCU, especially when they proved that they can come back and whatnot, but then some diminishing losses and the rest of the tournament. But ever since then, they get a bounce back win against DePaul. They get a great win against Iowa. And then with the women's team, they, fought really hard. And that's all that really matters is when you can put up great competition against, a top 5 team in the nation. I mean, that speaks volumes for where the program can be, not even just in the next few years, but even later in this season.
Mm-hmm. Especially with how young the team is, you definitely like to see that they can actually compete right now, mm-hmm. which especially like that's a loss that was good enough where we're probably not going to even put it against them. That's probably one that almost rises them in any rankings you would see.
Yeah, and I think it'll definitely be a different style of play for both teams when they do go to Big 12 play. But it's just a different type of basketball that they're forced to play. Obviously, both Iowa men's and women's, they're known for just putting up the points. They're not really going to focus that much on defense. And I think, it's going to prepare them for when both the men and the women's team get into those games in Big 12 play where it becomes a shootout. It's not very often that happens. But when you are put in a familiar situation, you can kind of adapt to, okay, what went wrong the last time and what went right, and just go from there.
Mm-hmm. I think we kind of saw that on the men's side with the Prairie View A&M game where they got down early and they were honestly battling back and forth against a team that you would kind of expect them to run away with right away. And for them to trail for 4 minutes at the start there, I think you saw how they took away the tournament losses. They trailed in 2 of those games in the tournament at the start, and then they knew what it took for a team to overcome a big deficit. So I think they honestly just looked at what went wrong at the tournament and how to fix it, and then they fixed that soon against Prairie View.
And, I mean, it was much easier because, you're going up against a team like Prairie View A&M. It's a little different competition than when you're trying to come back against a Virginia Tech or a Texas A&M. But, it's definitely traits that they've picked up through the season, this very short season so far. And, like you said, you're trailing after the first 5 minutes, but then you end up winning by 50 because, again, you just get back to, playing that great offense in the paint that they've seen from not only their forwards, but their guards. And, I mean, Curtis Jones having a breakout game, which both of us have been waiting for.
They told us going into the year that Curtis Jones was a sharpshooter, that is really good from deep. And, I mean, you look at his tape from Buffalo, and, yeah, he can shoot the ball, but that has not been evident in the beginning of the year. And, he's just been in a slump since the start, and he's talked about, what it's going to take to break out of that slump. And I think he just went back to basics. And what TJ said, honestly, was taking that easy shots early to get the momentum going, and he did that against Prairie View A&M.
And, I asked questions to Curtis, and he just said, yeah, it was basically what you said, getting back to the basics and what worked with him back at Buffalo. Looking back at his stats at Buffalo, in times that he's been forced to become, a high volume shooter, shoot maybe like 6, 7, 8 threes a game. It hasn't really exactly worked out for him, but the first shots were falling for him. And then when there was one that I think it was in the third or the second half, bounced off the back of the rim and in, and he gave us a great quote saying, I guess it was just my day. And it really was for him. And I'm sure they're hoping that, they see more production from him like that from outside, especially with him being, a guy off the bench that they've trusted with a lot of minutes and shots.
And I think they trusted him with the minutes for his defense mainly, but now it's nice to see the offense coming. I like how you mentioned that shot because I think we were sitting up there in press row and he puts that up and I'm like, oh, that's his first miss of the day. There's no way that's going. And it falls through. I'm like, okay, he just is not going to miss anything.
Yeah, he played a big role in that win over Prairie View A&M, but also Keyshawn Gilbert cemented himself. That performance got him the Big 12 Newcomer of the Week award in what would be his third straight game with 20-plus points. I knew Keyshawn Gilbert was going to be a great scoring guard, but I did not expect 20-point performances to just be flying out like they have been for him. And it's really just been his relentlessness to continue to put himself in favorable positions in the paint and push the ball in there. And, I always love seeing big men get the ball into the paint, but when you can see a small guard just not care, throw himself into the paint, put up a shot, it's awesome basketball to watch, and he's been a great player for them, especially these last couple of games.
And I know that he tends to like look for fouls too. I know a lot of guards will do that, drive into the lane, try to pick up that foul, also putting up a good shot. And his shots, honestly, have been falling, which is nice to see, especially since he is getting to the free throw line. That Prairie View A&M game, probably the most fouls I've seen in a game, like right off the bat. And I think he saw that too, and he was like, well, if they're calling fouls, I might as well get to the line and just get points. And that's kind of how Iowa State ran away with the game, is they understood what like the atmosphere was, what they needed to do to win. And Keyshawn was a big factor in forcing fouls on the other team and getting into the paint and just kind of like opening up the game.
Yeah, I mean, through the first couple of minutes, both teams were fouling pretty hard. And that's kind of what kept Iowa State from jumping out to a big lead, was there was a lot of stoppages of play early on. And then for Prairie View A&M, they didn't really adjust as well as Iowa State did in terms of playing hard defense. And Iowa State ended up shooting, like 28 free throws, making like 20 of them.
I think, no, they shot 48.
40.
Made like 36.
It's been a while. Since I looked at that stat sheet. But, yeah, I mean, like you said, they really took advantage of shooting at the line. And, again, just that a different aspect to help them jump out to that big 50-point win over Prairie View A&M. And, they have a week off now, and they'll play another game on Sunday. Thankfully, this one will not be at noon. It'll actually be at 5:30. So, maybe the players will be a little bit more awake than they looked last weekend.
Yeah, they definitely started that game looking a little sleepy. I don't know if that was just us also being tired being there at noon, or if maybe everybody in the building, there wasn't a lot of energy in Hilton, which I guess if you're playing a team like Prairie View A&M, on the week before finals, you're not going to really draw a big crowd. But I mean, they woke up in the end. They pulled out the 50-point win, so I guess that's all you can really say.
And, you know, just as much as Iowa State has, the men's side has kept rolling, the women's got themselves a bounce-back win against North Dakota State, I want to say. And that was a team that I thought this could, I mean, I knew they put up a good fight against Iowa, but I was actually kind of scared going in because I thought this could have been a game that they would have dropped at home.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, they kind of like the men's side against Prairie View. Kind of start off against slow, and only were leading by 5 after the end of the first quarter. But I think things started to really pick up from there. Obviously, they scored 21 points in the first 3 quarters and finishing with 26 to get them a 30-point win.
Yeah, I mean, first time this season that this team offensively has scored over 20 points in every quarter. First time that they've outplayed a team in every quarter. And Naidu was saying in the post-game press conference, like, yes, this was our most complete game because the stats say so. I mean, it's there on paper.
Yeah, I think what the biggest thing was, too, in this game was 6 different Cyclones getting over double figures. I mean, you don't expect Addie Brown, Audie Crooks to get over double figures every game, but, like, Hannah Bellinger, the transfer from Truman State, got her highest game scoring as a Cyclone, 15, but also off the bench, Nelly Nadabu got 11, and Jalen Bristow also got 11 towards the end of the game, too, so that was awesome to see.
Yeah, and then Addie Brown, too. I mean, she's the only one that double-doubles, so close to another triple-double, 8 assists. It only feels like a matter of time before she's going to get there. But then a couple other stats to highlight. First time this season that this team shoots over 50% in a game, and they hold North Dakota State to its lowest shooting percentage, well under 30%, or I mean around 30%, kind of around there.
And I also wanted to talk about their second quarter shooting. Like, ever since, like, the Drake game, you know, it's kind of been slow. But obviously these past couple games, like, they've been on fire on the second quarter, and they've been able to bring it through the rest of the game. Even in the Iowa game, like, even this game against North Dakota State, they went 9 for 16 in the second quarter, which they did again in the third quarter, which is huge for their win. Yeah,
it's really been a focus that they've wanted to perfect since that 4-point performance against Drake. And I think it's really shown that in this performance that, you know, it's getting to where they want it to be. And you also look at the Drake game, too, because North Dakota State also played Drake 2 days prior to their game against Iowa State. And kind of a comparison of those 2 games, it looked like North Dakota State outplayed Drake more than Iowa State did against Drake. So heading into that game, I was a little nervous, but Iowa State put the pedal to the metal and took off and had a huge win.
Yeah, so bringing it back to Addie Brown, I like that you bring up her double-double. I talked to her at the press conference today, and she was actually didn't even know she was close to a triple-double, and I think one of the assistants told her or something. And, you know, we assumed maybe her senior year of high school she might have gotten a couple or, you know, 2 or 3 or whatever. She's only had 1 ever. And she was like, well, maybe I'll just get more at Iowa State. So it is nice to see that she is kind of becoming a powerhouse and is somebody that people can kind of look forward to.
Yeah, I'd say that her presence on the team is felt already. She's been a driving force offensively, defensively. She grabs rebounds, she gets assists. I mean, obviously she showed it again there, nearly having that triple-double. It's really only a matter of time until she does get there, and I think it's going to be a big moment when she does, and it'll just be the first of many.
Yeah, I think even coming into a big university, you think she'd take a backseat as a freshman just to learn and stuff, but she's really just taken off, you know, like you said, scoring double-doubles, points, rebounds, and assists. Like, she's just an all-around player. I know Bill runs her at the 1, also at the point guard position, which like throws off other teams seeing like a forward play the point guard.
Yeah, and that's something that he's talked about too a lot is he's trying to fit her into wherever she can, and it feels like she can fit in really anywhere that Bill throws her at.
Mm-hmm. And we talk about another player who is really good at filling up the stat sheet in Taman Lipsey, who had kind of a historic night going back to the Prairie View A&M game. 8 steals, which is a school record. Took it from Fred Hoiberg, who is also an Ames High alum.
Yeah, I mean, he was just all over the place against Prairie View A&M. He's been getting steals consistently throughout this season. Again, just another facet of his game that he has, you know, just gotten better at. And, you know, it was a little easy. It almost seems easy for him. I mean, he's just constantly poking balls and then getting it back to his teammates on the other end. And just for him to have, I mean, he's putting his name in multiple spots in the record book this first month and a half into the season.
Mm-hmm. And that's something that I think he'll continue doing because he honestly has proven himself as one of the best players, one of the best point guards in the nation, if not like the best point guard in the Big 12 currently, which, I mean, is crazy to see considering where he was at last year.
Yeah, I mean, to us right now, he's underrated in terms of the national scope. I think he's one of those players that's going to benefit from Big 12 play, getting his name out there. And, yeah, we know that he is starting to look like one of the best point guards in the country. And, I mean, that just shows the amount of growth that he's had from year 1 to year 2. Last year, he was just really a solid guard as a starter, but I did not think that he was going to be able to make this kind of jump. And like I said earlier, he's become kind of that leader as a sophomore, which is just crazy, but you almost kind of expected him to make a jump in terms of a leadership standpoint because of how many new guys came in, and there was only like 3 or 4 guys returning from last year's team. So, you're going to have senior leaders like Rob Jones and Trey King, but especially for Taman to be a guard who, is just an enforcer and leading the team and, just putting his name in the history books it's been really fun to see, honestly.
I like that you bring up older players like Rob Jones because we'll talk about some of the surprising players so far this season. I think for me, Rob Jones has taken such a leap forward this year from last year, or even from any of his years, that it's just almost mind-blowing because he's not only become just insanely efficient on offense, which was something that he kind of lacked a little bit in previous years, struggling to hit that 50% field goal percentage, struggling from the line. And now he's consistently getting like 70%. I mean, he was perfect on the day against Prairie View A&M, I think, or Iowa.
It was against Iowa.
Against Iowa.
Yeah, I think it was 6 for 6 or 7 for 7,
so
whatever it was.
Yeah, so seeing that offensive efficiency, especially when he's in a spot where he's expected to make up reps, because with no Hassan Ward, with no real true big man playing at a high level or able to play at a high level, he has become the guy that is taking that role.
And that's kind of always been my knock on Rob Jones is I think he is this big body forward that he really hasn't used his size to his advantage as much as he should. And he has been doing that this year. He's been forcing balls into the paint. And I think, that's always kind of been an emphasis from TJ is not to rely on 3-point shots. And I think that's where you've seen it at some points last year and the year before. They really needed someone like that. They had Oshuni. He was solid, but Oshuni's gone now. And who's going to fill that role? We knew that Trey King wanted to come into the season and be one of the best rebounders in the Big 12. But offensively, Rob Jones, just like you said, I mean, he had a jump from after his first year at Iowa State to his second, which was nice. I think that's just veteranness. But he just seems like he has a tenacity to just want to get better and be someone that everyone can look up to on the team. And like you said, he's hitting his shots more. He's using his size. And he's been a big part of having their plan to, have a big emphasis in the paint has kind of come to fruition because of him.
And they're like outscoring pretty much everybody they played in the paint. And that's really because Rob Jones, I mean, you can just get the ball low to him. And he'll actually use his size and he'll just outbody everybody. And he'll get shots up and the shots are actually falling. And if they aren't, then him and Trey King, that combination inside has just kind of just blown over most teams they've gone against. And
he's also become just, a better passer. It's a part of his game that we haven't really seen much of. I know it was a couple weeks ago he was asked about it. And if the paint doesn't work, then that's when they dish it out for a 3. They haven't really done that as much lately because, like you said, they've just constantly outscored their opponents inside the paint, even in losses. I mean, they've just controlled, the colored area. And, him and Trey King, the duo that they are, I mean, I think, again, I know I'm riding a little high on them right now. A lot of guys, the backcourt of Lipsy and Gilbert and the front court of, King and Jones, but I think they are going to be one of the best, front courts in the Big 12, at least one of the most physical.
And not only that, Rob Jones brings an energy to the team, but also like the stadium as well to just, it almost just like ignites something in the team. He's kind of like a spark plug, and he was that whenever he would enter the lineup, but now he's starting. So he brings that from the tip off.
He brought the energy, and now he's bringing the offense that everyone has loved or has been wanting to see. And TJ said a little bit ago that he takes a lot of pride in having the Cyclone jersey that he wears. And that's just, there's nothing else that you want to see from a guy like that who has the tools to be a great big man and then loves playing for the school that he plays for. And me, I'm just happy to see that he's kind of come into this leadership role off the court and then just been the offensive player that I always knew that he was going to be. I think he just needed some more time, and he's had that these past couple of years to develop and just get better.
And you talk about another player who brings energy almost in a similar way to Jones is Jackson Paveletzky, who we've seen kind of take not only an increased role, but just take, you know, all the other teams just by off guard. You know, he comes in and he just plays solid minutes. And I mean, I think we expected that, but from the start of the season to now, it's almost like a different Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, his first couple of games, he wasn't even hitting that 10-minute mark. And now he's hitting over 20, 24 minutes per game. And it's because I think he's proven himself. You know, what we've heard is that he's proven himself in practice. He's shown that same energy. And, you know, I was looking at his tape at Wofford, and, you know, he was a great scorer and always worked his way into the paint. Well, that's what TJ wants. And now, you know, he hasn't really been the guy that has, you know, filled the stat sheets like Gilbert and Lipsy, but he's brought the energy that everyone's like, all right, you know, he's bought into this system. And, you know, he's had his shots. He's had his moments. He's, again, another guard that's been fighting for rebounds and controlling the offense pretty well. But like you said, he's brought the energy off the bench that has been much needed, considering, you know, we haven't really seen anyone else off the bench bring the energy that he has. And for him to step into this new role as a new guy from the transfer portal, I think that just speaks miles about his character for not being scared to jump into this new area and take on a new role. He was pretty much the guy at Wofford, and now he's been the guy off the bench for Iowa State.
I like that you bring that up about TJ too. He kind of like fits TJ's, like his system, you know. He drives into the lane, he can kick it out, he can shoot the threes, honestly, and he has a good awareness of the court, but also he plays defense with an insane amount of effort. And, you know, he's not a big guy at all, but he's going up for rebounds, he's fighting for balls, and he's honestly suffocating people on defense, which is something that I feel like every player at Iowa State kind of needs to do or has shown that they have to do.
Yeah, I think consistently TJ's put together a team that has bought into the defensive mantra. And I've never really seen a guy like Jackson play the defense that he does play, especially in a TJ Otzberger system. 6'2", 185. You would think he's Rob Jones, 6'10", 250. But, you know, he brings the energy and he brings the defense that, like you said, TJ just loves guys like that. And if you prove it in practice and you prove it on the court, you're just going to keep getting more and more minutes, which is what Paveletzky's done, especially these last 3 or 4 games.
So though it may not be a surprise to maybe you, as somebody who's a big Jackson guy,
I've been bought in ever since media day when, you know, I'm looking at this kid from Wofford and just wait. Take some time, but just wait.
Yeah, I know you were talking about, I didn't think he'd get that few minutes, but I mean, now that he's gotten minutes, we're like, okay, there's the guy we think we've seen.
Yeah.
So going over to the women's side, I know there's definitely a lot to choose from for just kind of players that are playing better than expected, you know.
I mean, it might not be as much of a surprise to anyone, but I personally choose Audie Crooks. I mean, obviously, yeah, I expected her to play well, but, like, she didn't have a starting spot at the starting of the year. I mean, Nelly Nadabu held that center spot, and then all of a sudden, Audie just breaks out, scoring double figures every game, getting to the line a lot, and just she's become just a huge factor in every game that Iowa State's played.
Yeah, her presence in the paint, it's there every single game. And now that this team has a true center that they can build around, it's huge for, you know, where they go in the future. And if they can keep, you know, feeding her in the paint, if she can keep getting to the line and establishing herself on defense, I think she's got a really good career here at Iowa State. Obviously, I've got to stick with Addie Brown because, you know, she's going off here nearing triple doubles. And like I said, it's only a matter of time before she gets one. She has been kind of behind the shadow a little bit of Crooks and Jones to start the season, but I think she's starting to break out of that and start to become her own player and be a top player for this team.
Yeah, I agree. I know I was talking about it a little earlier too in the pod about her being like playing at different positions and just coming out of high school being like coming into this role, think you'd be in the backseat role. But yeah, I mean, she's really like ascended her progress already, and I'm very surprised that she's done it so far.
And I like that you bring that up about kind of like both players, but especially Iowa State having a true center like Adi, because I think last season we saw they finally had a true center in Suarez, and when they had that, they looked really good. And then when you have other players that can also score alongside a bigger player that can not only put up points but just be a presence in the paint, you know, you have people that can score kind of like Addie Brown can. The team is really complete, and I think there's just a lot of players overall on the women's side that just show that they can play a complete game.
And that goes for really any team outside. I mean, Iowa State, any NCAA basketball team, you don't really see true centers a lot because, I mean, you're dealing with 18 to 23-year-olds. But when you have a true center that can play and really just establish a presence in the paint, I think you've seen a lot of success. You know, we've seen, especially from Big 12 players, I'm glad that you bring up Suarez, but especially in men's basketball too, you don't really see great big guys going out there, you know, 6'10", 6'11", whatever the case may be. The best men's basketball teams and women's basketball teams, when they have that true center, they're gonna end up being one of the better teams in the nation.
Mm-hmm. I think that's why LSU is so good on the women's side, is because they have size. Or same with like South Carolina too. They have that size.
Yeah, and I mean, you got Audie Crooks, who she has been using her size to her advantage a lot, and much like, you know, Robert Jones, who, you know, different situation for Robert Jones because he had to step in due to injury. But Audie Crooks, she proved that she's better than Isnell, and at such a young age to step into that starting role, she's really taken advantage of it, and it's been fun to watch her do that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Because, I mean, every game, you know, Audie Crooks is there. She's worked her way into the starting role. And, yeah, and I think that Audie's been able to succeed at the rate that she has because a lot of the teams that Iowa State's played so far don't really have a true center. I mean, there's been a lot of small ball this year, and I think that that's really helped Audie in her transition from high school to college basketball.
Yeah, I think obviously the presence in the paint, the small ball lineups of every other opponent really helps her also. But I wanted to talk about the energy she brings to the team. I know she's a very passionate person. She brings a lot of energy to the person. It really helps them carry them to like these good wins against these non-con opponents. And even the game in Iowa, she brought great energy, and it helped along with the Hill and Magic.
Yeah, and her personality really shows too, because there was a moment against North Dakota State that I saw where her and Naidu were fighting for a rebound. They both don't come out with it. It goes out of bounds, and you know, Audie goes over and like says like, "I'm sorry, that's my bad. It's on me." And it's good that, you know, she's, you know, taking accountability and seeing that, whoa, there's other players on the court too.
And in kind of a similar boat to Audie Crooks, but somebody who isn't really playing as well for their team as Audie, is another freshman, a big player, Omaha Blue.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about him a couple times on this podcast, and I don't mean to seem like we're hating on the kid. You know, he's definitely just trying to get adjusted to collegiate play, and we've seen some good spurts from him. But honestly, one thing that you've talked about is that this style of offense from Iowa State doesn't really suit what he's all about as the five-star prospect that we saw coming out of high school.
He's more of a fast-paced player, you know, scoring in transition, and he is very tough and physical, which when you're going up against college refs, they're going to call a lot more than high school refs would. So he's falling into some of these, you know, hand-fighting matches on the defensive end of the ball or under the rim, and he's kind of just maybe not using his size safely enough, which is kind of causing his minutes to decrease, because when TJ throws him out there, he's kind of hoping for him to be a spark plug, but instead he's taking a little too long to get going, and he's picking up fouls, which in turn stops the momentum of the team and gives the other team opportunities.
And he's a guy that we thought at this point in the non-conference schedule, he'd kind of have a role carved out for him. Honestly, if these next couple of games you don't really see that going into Big 12 play, I don't really know what he's going to be for this team, what his minutes are going to look like. It'll definitely be interesting. Like I said, he has great talent, and as a prospect, it's very exciting to know that he was going to be joining Iowa State this season, but we just don't know what he is yet. And if his style of play is going to translate to the collegiate level, TJ's gone on and on about how he wants to be this guy for not only his team, himself, his family, the state. And I think at this point, you need to look at whether, like I said, his style of play is going to translate outside of just the pressure that comes along with being a 5-star recruit freshman in your home state.
Mm-hmm. He's shown flashes of potential that he can be that guy. Like he's done plays where you're like, okay, he's going to be really good. Mm-hmm. But there's also a lot of plays where, I mean, he hasn't earned the minutes yet, but there's a lot of plays that I would say have a fast break, or they have a turnover that would lead to a really good lob play at the rim. And he would need to be in those plays, but he's on the bench because he can't play every minute. That's just how it is. Mm-hmm. And I think his style of play in high school was he relied on playing every minute because he was such a dominant player. But now he's going up against men now, mm-hmm. and they're going to be a lot tougher, a lot more physical, and he might have to just stay in college for a bit, figure it out. And I know he will be great, but if he doesn't figure out something by the end of non-con, then he's not going to have a lot of opportunities to be great.
Yeah, and the opportunities for him to be great will, they'll be few and far between once we get into conference play when, like you said, you're going up against men. And as an 18, 19-year-old is going to have to be going up against, 23-year-old guys like Hunter Dickinson, who have, been in college basketball for a long time and been one of the better players in college basketball. So, it'll definitely be interesting to see. One guy that I want to see come off the bench more and, just kind of, he hasn't really gotten the minutes that I think he deserves, especially defensively. I think he's worked great with TJ Alsberger's system, especially on the defensive side is Demarion Watson. I think for him to be a guard at 6'6", to have that kind of size and then show off, he had games last year too. He had great defense and his offense, was a little shaky, but you saw it come in spurts. I would like to see him more coming off the bench more, especially, when you need breaks for Rob and Trey. And I know they're forwards, but we've seen Iowa State run 4-guard setups pretty often. So if you can get like him, Omaha going, you want to get all the bench guys you can and have a really fully developed, what it would be, 9-man lineup.
Yeah. Especially with his size, he honestly looks bigger than how tall he is.
Yeah.
And he can play bigger than that too. I think he kind of just has fallen into the role of there's a lot of other really talented players ahead of him that are going to need the minutes. Mm-hmm. And he really just has to be that presence on defense when he comes in. And if he scores, good for him. Yep. But the scoring is not going to be the thing that's going to get him minutes. It's going to be his defense and how we can use his length, because he isn't going to get a lot of time on the court.
Yeah, there's only so many minutes to go around, and unfortunately for our guys, Watson and Omaha, they're going to have to work their way into those minutes, and they have these next couple non-conference games to get them going and kind of really get everyone's role cemented before you get into Big 12 play, which, again, one of, if not the toughest conference in the country for both sides.
Yeah, it is the basketball conference.
Yep.
And that's also kind of true on the women's side. And speaking of players that maybe aren't not disappointing in a way, but are just kind of more quieter currently than they have been or than we've expected them to be, who are those quiet players?
Well, obviously a quieter person has been Kelsey Jones. Being a Jones sister coming to Iowa State, you'd expect bigger things from her. Obviously she's had spurts like they said over there on the men's side where she's been good at times, but then recently she's struggled to hit double figures in points, which has really cost the team. Obviously in the Iowa game it would have been nice to have some of those shots going, but I still have confidence in her to be maybe a potentially great player here at Iowa State, but I'd like to see maybe her get more opportunities. I know she just got replaced in the starting lineup from this last game in North Dakota State by Ariana Jackson.
Yeah, Kelsey's definitely got time to figure it out though. And I think she will, because she's got the talent and everything to back that up. But for me, it's Aisno Nadabu, because she starts as a starter to start the year. and gets replaced by Audie Crooks because Audie's been outplaying her on offense. Ice Snow, I think, has been better defensively, but it's the presence that Audie presents on offense, and scoring points is what matters, and that's ultimately why Ice Snow is on the bench. So I just want to see a little bit more of her. I don't know if it's because she's playing in a tougher league that she's been struggling a little bit, but I think that she can get back up there, and I just hope that she can improve a little bit before Big 12 play starts here very soon.
Mm-hmm. And with the non-con schedules kind of finishing up, the men's side, they have a couple more here to play, especially this Sunday. They play against Florida, I believe Florida A&M.
Yeah.
And, I mean, these aren't teams that – these are kind of the last games that they have to figure everything out because they're not going to be up to the level of the Big 12 play, but – they are still going to be important, and they are still going to be kind of must-wins at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you got to use these bye games as much as you can. And TJ, before the season, really talked about you set yourself up for non-conference to have the best opportunity to get into the tournament by the time Big 12 play is all said and done. By the end of these non-conference games, you're looking at an Iowa State team that's 10-2 going into conference play. It's something very similar that we've seen the past couple years with TJ, and I mean, I'm just really excited to see how Iowa State, this pretty young team, honestly, is going to stack up against some of the powerhouses of the Big 12.
Especially with how tough wins are to come by in the Big 12. They're going to at least need these next 3 games to go kind of their way, especially with them being at home.
Yeah. So
but I also expect a similar outcome to like Prairie View A&M.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to get probably, I don't know if it would be 50-point wins, but you're going to get for the rest of non-conference at least 20, 30-point wins, and you're going to see a different guy go off every night, and hopefully for us, that will be either Omaha or Demarion Watson. I don't know if Demarion Watson's going to go out and score 20 points, but if he does, might have to go back and look at this episode and laugh at myself. So
that's true. And then the women's side, they're kind of playing, not cakewalk competition, but they do have some important games coming up.
Yeah, I would say, Sunday they come host Troy, and Troy hasn't been good at all this season. Only have 1 win. It was not even an impressive win, but I see they play a lot of small ball just like every other team, so I expect a lot of the Addie Brown and Audie Crooks show on Sunday.
Yeah, paint presence is going to be crucial once again, and on Wednesday as well, because the UNI Panthers are coming to town, and like Iowa State, they've played a lot of similar teams. They've played Iowa. UNI lost by 40. So I think Iowa State played them a little better. UNI was also part of the South Point shootout that Iowa State was. Both of those teams played Vanderbilt and Syracuse. Both lost to Vanderbilt and Syracuse. But when you look at it, UNI lost to Syracuse by 17. They lost to Vanderbilt by just 4. So, they've played a little better and a little worse at times. So I think it's going to be a good matchup. But the one thing to remember, though, is like Troy, UNI has won 1 win this year, and it was to Green Bay. So I think that Iowa State is probably going to take care of business once again and finish the non-conference portion of the season with 2 big wins.
Yeah, so hopefully both sides can clean up the rest of the non-con schedule. I guess all there is now is to just wait for those games to unfold and see who does well, who doesn't do well, and see what we have to look forward to for conference play. So thanks for watching and listening, and join us next time. See ya.